have been talking about challenges, and you've been talking about the issue. And so, as Jamie Claire said, we're going to zoom out, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about getting it done. In the next phase of your time here, you're going to start thinking about a passionate response to getting it done. And so what it will look like, what these issues will look like when they're solved. And so I want us to just take a minute and just trust me on this. So I'm going to ask you to just do one thing. Raise your hand as high as you can. Higher. So you can put your hands down. That area of stretch, or the place where you held back a little bit, I'm going to ask you not to do that in your next moment. The industry needs everything you have because you're brave enough to show up. So the industry needs that stretch. The stretch in your ideas, stretching in your willingness to have hard conversations. We need that extra. So I'm just going to say, as you go into the next moment, don't hold back anything. If it's hard, if it's uncomfortable, that's what this safe space is about. So I'm just going to share a little story about me. It is not about ElevateHER, but it is about how I came to this notion of getting things done. I am a recovering non-starter. So it's a little better than being a quitter, but it's almost the same thing. And I was in a learning environment a few years ago, and it was about group-based idea generation, like how to get ideas with a group. Not rocket science, but I tell you, the thing that snapped me to attention was a conversation about, the instructor asked us to create your brand obituary. Before you move forward with creating another idea for your firm or whatever, I want you to look ahead 50 years and document what will people say about your brand, about your firm, about the impacts you've made in the community. And so I sort of feel that you all are at that same place, thinking about how ElevateHER in this movement and your participation as the inaugural class, how it's going to impact your personal legacy, the legacy of the firms that you lead, are currently associated with. And so legacy is simple. It's planting a seed in a garden you will never see. And I just challenge you all, again, as you stretch, as you're working towards getting this thing done, as you are presenting bravery in action, think about your legacy. Think about how you want to be remembered as a part of the cohort. Think about the people you will invite into the conversation in the days ahead. So the reason why I focus on legacy, it's sort of, when I was in that session, I was overwhelmed by the idea of legacy. I knew who I wanted to be remembered as a learning leader, but I also realized there were some gaps. So this is who I wanted people to remember me as: a serial dreamer, a learning machine, a leader of leaders. I wanted to be admired in the adult learning community. I wanted to be remembered as a mentor for my professional community. And so you all have who you want to be remembered as professionals, as firm owners, as firm leaders, as business developers, chief marketers. Well, this is who I really was. Some days I was showing up as a 5 out of 10 average. Some days I was only willing to do what I could master. I wasn't really reaching anymore. I wasn't as curious as I needed to be. Later was my drug of choice. I'll get to it. Well, procrastination is a bully. And how different would the AEC landscape be if someone sat in your seat doing this 10 years ago? Not just talking about it, but being willing to activate change in the industry. Being willing to be first. So, lots of people love to be first at a thing, but there's great risk. It's easy to follow. It's hard to be first. And so I'm so excited about ElevateHER because, of course, it's not the first in the conversation or the first group to dialogue, but this is the first group to take commitment to another level. So here was my issue. The divide was great for me. And I started challenging my thinking. I started working with an executive coach. I got therapy. I did lots of things to bridge the divide for me because my legacy matters. It matters how I'm remembered to me. Will my learning strategies end up in a college book? I don't know. Will I speak in front of thousands? Maybe. I don't know. The point is, it mattered to me just like this moment matters to you. And so I'll say like Seth said. I didn't say it. Seth said it. Average is for losers. And so as you continue in this effort, we need an 11 out of 10. The industry needs the best of who you are in this moment and the days ahead. Legacy matters. And I was thinking about, I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, originally, and I had the privilege of eulogizing my grandmother. I grew up with my grandparents. I lived in their home. And I had to reconcile that so much of who I am as a professional, my work ethic, all of that came from my upbringing. However, it won't necessarily serve me in my future. My grandparents, Columbia, South Carolina, you can paint your own picture. I grew up with my grandparents, living in their home. I was raised by my grandparents. So taking risk was not encouraged. Speaking up, not encouraged. Speak when you're spoken to, very encouraged. And so I had to reconcile in, all the things that I learned from my grandparents that make up a part of who I am today. I have to also acknowledge the parts that no longer serve me. And so think about that in your professional careers. It's hard to acknowledge that the people who opened a door for you, the people who gave you a chance to be a principal, the people who invited you to the table, it's hard to acknowledge when their methods won't work for your future or the future that you envision for your firms, for your colleagues, for your mentees. And so that was tough for me, but I can still honor who they've made me and still become the person that I envision myself to be. A risk taker, a ruckus maker. That's who I am. I just asked this question and I left this here because waiting for later is risky. And that means a lot of different things to a lot of people, but there's a price for, I think every one of you have paid some price that this type of movement hasn't moved the industry forward. Blake, you talked about how you're at the hospital and you are on the phone with your boss, like, why aren't you here? I mean, could I get, 2 days with my kid? The first time I'm meeting this human? I mean, am I allowed that? And so, some of you have paid the price because others didn't speak up. And so, the future will thank you for this moment, for not holding back. I'll say that, for not holding back. So I'm just gonna say, unleash your brilliance. Keep making a fuss about this. Keep talking about it. Keep making headway. And bring your own brilliance. I often say or think that, yes, we're hired to do a job of business development or learning development. However, it is the culmination of my experience and my spark that is the competitive advantage. And so I just want you guys to always remember that and certainly believe it. You are the competitive advantage. You're the competitive advantage for your firms by simply being in this room. And so just get it done. That's it.
Nice.